Hello, Drink Less, Feel Fresh family and listeners. Tommy Cartwright here, founder of Drink Less, Feel Fresh. Absolutely stoked and excited to dive into this week's episode of the Fresh AF podcast series. Welcome. Whether you're watching this on YouTube or listening on Spotify as you're driving your car or going for a run or whatever it may be, welcome to this week's episode of the podcast. Today we are diving into, as you can see, the title of this podcast episode is The Peak Performance Drug. The peak performance drug. One of my favorite topics on the planet, as all of you know, is how to reduce your alcohol intake with a smile on your face, how to change your relationship with alcohol whilst feeling good about it. And today we're diving into something, or it's a cheeky little insight into how you might be consuming and what we do at Drink Less, Feel Fresh. Good morning to everyone that's commenting through, who's watching this podcast recording live. So good to see you here. One of the things that we want to be aware of when it comes to changing our relationship with alcohol is that perspective matters. Perspective matters. And you've probably heard me say it before, but how you view your alcohol reduction journey matters more than how you go about your alcohol reduction journey. What you think, feel, believe. And so what that means is closing the gap between where you are and where you want to be. Let's say drinking more than you'd like, wanting to live with choice and freedom, or drinking more than you'd like, wanting to live the rest of your life sober. The gap, and the way to close that gap, I should say, is knowledge about yourself. And so what we do at Drink Less, Feel Fresh is we love sharing insightful, I should actually say insights into psychology, human behavior, social peer pressure activity, how human beings work on an individual basis, how we operate in social settings. And from that information and those insights, you can make better choices moving forward. Another way to say it is awareness. 99% of change comes down to awareness. So we must become aware of what we're doing and why we're doing it. And the reason why today's episode is titled The Peak Performance Drug is because something I've noticed, especially over the last 12 to 24 months, is when I'm speaking to a lot of high-performing individuals. When I say high-performing, I mean really busy mums, managing families, individuals that are trying to crush it in the corporate world, individuals that are running their own businesses, guys that are doing, wanting to do great things for themselves in business, stay-home dads, anybody that's managing a lot, anybody that's got kind of a lot on their plate. And that either comes into one of two categories, generally comes into a work environment or comes into a family dynamic. And one of the things that many of them, if not most, in fact, I've never spoken to someone and then said, oh yeah, Tom, I kind of knew that already. What I'm about to share is something that often it's the first time. More often than not, it's the first time anybody's ever heard it. And here it is, just straight down the line. When it comes to consuming alcohol and letting go of your need to consume alcohol, you must understand why you're doing it in the first place. Okay, you must understand why you're doing it in the first place. Now, there's many reasons why we drink. Many. There's so many motivating, influential factors. The clinical and traditional approach to changing your relationship with a substance like alcohol is, often goes straight down the lines of family, childhood trauma, therapy, et cetera, which is really beneficial, and everybody should have access to that. It's very important for everybody, no matter what your relationship with alcohol looks like. In saying that, today's just a really down the line insight. And what this is if you weren't aware of what you're about to hear, and when you hear it, you go, wow, that's me, the whole game will change for you. What do I mean by that? If you hear what I'm about to share with you and you haven't heard it before, but you also go, wow, that's me, everything will change. And here it is. Most people think they're consuming alcohol at the end of the long day to switch off. Okay. Most people believe that they're consuming alcohol to switch off. They say, oh, I just need time for me. I just need one glass of wine to switch off from a long day, which is accurate for a lot of people. But my question to you is, are you switching off when you have alcohol, or are you continuing to perform? I'll say it again. Are you switching off when you consume the alcohol, or are you continuing to perform? So if you're consuming alcohol after a long day and switching off from the world, and you're putting your feet up the couch, and you're saying, you're turning on the TV, you're probably using alcohol to switch off. But are you consuming alcohol at the end of a long day and then getting the dinner ready for individuals, cooking yourself dinner, getting on the move. Are you having a couple of drinks and then heading to a networking or a social event? Are you going to meet friends? So are you actually switching off, or are you performing at another level? I'll give you a perfect example. So many incredible people tell me that they experience this. They get home from a really long day. They feel tired, lethargic, maybe even a little bit impatient. Excuse me. This is just one example that I've heard from many of my clients. And then they say, I just feel that if I just have a glass of, excuse me, I just feel that if I have a glass of wine, I've now got more energy, just enough energy to cook the dinner and do it with a smile on my face. I hear that a lot of the time. Or I hear a lot of people say, it's just, I work really hard, have a really long day, get home. If I just, have a couple of drinks, just gets me over the line to keep getting some stuff done. I can get some more emails done. I can get the washing done. I can get the things around the house done. We hear it a lot. So my question again for you is, are you drinking to switch off, or are you drinking to keep performing? Now, if you're nodding your head along and you're thinking, either watching or listening to this, and you're thinking, yeah, I actually do all of those things. I know for myself, I used to find it easier to mow the lawn if I have a couple of beers. Isn't that interesting? It's like, I'll have a beer as I'm pushing the lawnmower around, or I'll stop the lawnmower and have a couple of sips of beer and keep going. It's a bit of a nostalgic thing, right? So if you're resonating with any of those messages, then chances are you're not using alcohol to switch off. You're using alcohol as a peak performance drug. Try that on. It's very rarely taught, what I'm teaching here. It's very rarely taught. Are you using alcohol to switch off, or are you using alcohol as a peak performance drug? Are you using alcohol to keep performing in certain areas? Are you using alcohol to socialize? Are you using alcohol so that you feel that you have more patience getting through an evening with the family? Are you using alcohol so you feel like you can add an extra few hours to your work day that you just wouldn't be able to if you didn't have a couple of drinks here and there? Are you using alcohol as a peak performance drug? Now, if you're resonating and you're thinking, wow, I am, the reason why that changes the game for you is because you need to, you need to look at this with a completely new lens. So here's my question for everybody. If you're thinking, wow, maybe I do a bit of both. Maybe I do use alcohol to switch off, but maybe I use it as a peak performance drug. Here's my question for you, which will rattle your cage a little bit. If you're using alcohol as a peak performance drug, when your body wants to switch off, by the way, if you need alcohol, your body's trying to switch off, okay? The number one influencing factor on why we feel triggered, thoughts, emotional feeling of like, oh, damn, I really just need a cold drink, is because our body's trying to switch off. It's not trying to switch on. Our body's not saying, oh, I really want to keep doing things. I really want to keep working. I really want to do this. It's actually just trying to switch off. And when we don't know how to take responsibility for that, we'll consume alcohol and we keep, as you know, performing. So my question for you is, if your body's trying to switch off and you keep switching it on, you keep forcing yourself to keep going. One of the most common reasons why people drink at the end of a long day is because they are tired and they don't want to deal with feeling tired. They only need about half a drink generally before that tired feeling goes away. Say it again. One of the biggest reasons why people drink at the end of a day is often because they're tired. They think to themselves, I just want to switch off. But then as you're learning from this episode, you're not switching off. You keep going. You get the lawn done. You get the washing done. You cook the food. You eat your dinner. You probably even now have energy to stay up late and watch TV because you're a bit numb and you're just like, yeah, I can just get through it. My question for you is, if your body is trying to switch off and you keep forcing it to switch on, drinking and socializing, drinking and cooking, drinking and doing things, you keep performing, then when is your body getting a chance to relax? When is your body getting a chance to relax? Big part of the alcohol reduction journey and game is learning to listen to your body, not listen to your thoughts, not listen to what your thoughts are saying. Oh, I feel like a drink. We'll go and have a drink. No. Listen to your body. And if you're resonating with this message, then this will be huge for you regarding changing your relationship with alcohol, living with more choice and living with more freedom. So the main points, the main key takeaways from today are, remember, are you drinking to switch off, or are you drinking to keep performing? And even take it, like, even when I'm saying, even when you're hearing this, take it easy on yourself. Listen to how much some of you might be performing to such a high degree. How many of you are getting a busy workday done and then you feel that you've got more on your plate to do that evening? So that right there is a peak performance drug. No, it's not the best peak performance drug. Of course it's not, but that's what it is. That's what we're using it for. Peak performance drug. If individuals have social anxiety, so they drink to deal with the social situation, that in my mind, that is a peak performance drug. It's an experience of like, oh, I feel like I can't perform in this area. Where's the drugs that'll help me perform? I know a lot of parents that have told me they use alcohol after learning this. They say, wow, I think I use alcohol as a peak performance drug. And I say, what for? They say, in regards to having more patience with the kids and the family members. I have a couple of wines. I feel like I have more patience. If I didn't have that, I feel like I'd be irritable, annoyed, and I'd lash out, so to speak. That right there, that's a peak performance drug in my mind. You're taking something that you don't have, saying, I want it. You're, for lack of a better term, apologies, but you're injecting yourself with alcohol, and then you're feeling like you can perform. That is a peak performance drug. And the second part to this episode is understanding, well, if you're always performing, when is your body getting a chance to switch off? When is your body getting a chance to switch off? And that might be hard to hear, or it might be really relieving to hear. But when we get to this part in the conversation, now we are at the point in our lives where we are talking about introducing trauma into our lives. We are putting and creating trauma on our body. Our body is wanting something and it's forced to experience something else. That almost could be some form of definition of trauma in itself, a traumatic experience or event. When people hear trauma, they often think a traumatic certain experience, right? It's like, this happened, it was very traumatic. Yes, okay, so what does that mean? What's been happening? Well, the body is forced to emotionally or physically deal with something it wish it didn't have to. Traumatic event outside of our hands, potentially. Traumatic event happened. That's trauma. Most of us, I don't want to get too dark on this call because I did say it was going to be a light-hearted, sharp and punchy one, but most of us are forcing our bodies into trauma each and every day. And that's not a judgment, I'm not an advocate against alcohol. That's not what we do at DLFF, but it's important to understand what we're doing to our bodies. If we're using alcohol as a peak performance drug, when the hell are we getting a chance to switch off without alcohol? When are we doing that? And if we're not, like, how's the body feeling? Just constantly forcing the body to keep showing up. And that is, I try to pull myself up from saying it, but it's the only way I can. That is forcing ourselves into more and more trauma every day. More and more trauma. And yes, it's not only alcohol. We're doing this with food. We do it with many, many things. I've recently personally been on a coffee detoxing journey. I got to a level of, needing to perform in business and family and everything that I want to experience. And whilst I don't consume alcohol very much at all these days, I do love my coffee. Over the past 4 years of drinking coffee, I've realized I've become, heavy reliant on that. So I've recently kicked that to the curb because I just am very passionate about kicking to the curb anything that your body becomes reliant on that causes you negative consequences. And it's the same approach there. So take it easy on yourself if you're listening to this and you think, wow, I'm putting my body in trauma. So are most people. Remember, 99% of change is awareness. If you're not aware that you're potentially using alcohol as a peak performance drug, you'll just be scratching your head wondering every day, like, oh, geez, why did I do it again? You just got to ask yourself, am I about to consume alcohol so I can keep performing? And the second follow-up question is there a better way I could be doing this? Is there a better way I could be performing? Drink Less, Feel Fresh family, listeners, viewers, if you're watching this on YouTube, hello. If you're listening to this on Spotify, so good to have you. And if you're watching live, thank you so much for being here. Love the comments that have come through over time. You can show up live to these episodes. Head to www.drinklessfeelfresh.com and register. You and I can rock out every Monday morning, 8 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. And if you have any questions, you can comment through it. I'll make sure that they're answered. If I can't get to them live, I will pencil them in the diary and bring them up on next week's episode. But at the end of the day, if you're on an alcohol reduction journey, if you want to learn to live with more choice and freedom, if you no longer want to be held back by something that is so socially appropriate to hold people back, which is alcohol, show up to these calls, come and rock out with us every Monday morning. Great way to be held accountable. Incredible way to start the week. How about that, hey? Incredible way to start the week feeling fresh AF by having a 10 to 15 minute conversation about alcohol reduction in a very insightful, playful way, very lighthearted, because I think it's important to start the week feeling light about ourselves. And that'll do us for today. Looking forward to seeing most of you next week, same time, same place for the Feel Fresh AF podcast live recording. And if you're watching this on Spotify or watching on YouTube, have an incredible day. Enjoy the rest of your week and look forward to seeing you on the next one. Bye for now.